Are you ready to embark on a relaxing journey into our world? It's time to close your eyes and get rid of your worries. This video is not just a story. It's a gentle experience designed just for you. So, relax. Take a deep breath. How should proper behavior be? Hassan intervened and said, "My daughter Raghad, tomorrow Walid will bring you here again. And every day, if you want to play with Nahla, come and play, bring your toys too. I don't want..." Then I started crying. Maybe her aunt thinks we are insulting her in some way. Did you force her out of my room that night? "Tomorrow Walid will bring you here, my dear," I said, trying to entice her to come by any means. "We will stop by the grocery store and buy you the kind you like." She seemed to like the idea, so she stopped crying and looked at me. Her aunt said encouragingly, "Come on, my daughter, and when you come tomorrow, we will buy you Nahla and Hassan more eggs." How can I apologize? She is the orphan who, even if the whole world was sacrificed for her sake, would not compensate her for a single moment spent in the arms of her mother or father. I said, "What do you want next? A new toy or a new coloring book?" She said, "I want a toy and I want a notebook." I said, "You greedy lady, here, as you command, my lady." She finally smiled at me. I felt something move my pants. I looked down and found Nahla holding my pants and shaking them, then saying, "Carry me." I looked at her with amazement and astonishment. "Raghad says that you're very strong, and you were carrying her with Dana together." Oh my God. That night I made Raghad sleep on my bed for the last time. And I colored with her a lot and read more than one story to her. And of course I bought her more than one toy and more than one coloring book in addition to the eggs. Maybe this was my way of apologizing. If I pamper my little girl a lot, it's because I love her so much. While she was sleeping peacefully on my bed, I began to contemplate her with compassion and love. How wonderful she is, and how much I relate to her. How this sounds crazy. I went to where I put the safety box, took it, and looked at it intensely. I wished my sight could penetrate the box to see what was inside it. I wish I knew the name that followed this sentence. When I grow up, I will get married. When you grow up tomorrow, only when you grow up, One day we decided to have some barbecue at home in the garden. My father prepared what was needed and lit the charcoal. It was a beautiful day, and we were happy for this home outing in which the children rarely spoke. Summer, if I considered him a child, and Dana and Raghad were wandering here and there. Samar is obsessed with his bicycle, which he doesn't stop riding and taking care of in all his free time. Raghad loved riding with him very much, and she learned how to ride herself, except that they were minor, harmless falls, which they enjoyed and laughed happily. Dana was helping my mother prepare. My father went to get something. Staying away from the embers gave me a wider scope to watch its flames and flames, and its hell. My eyes were moving between Raghad and Samar on the bike and between the burning embers. Then I wandered off. Suddenly, the bike staggered and was moving quickly, driven by little Raghad, and before Samar could, it fell. Stopping it, it hit. For some reason, This fall could have been as normal as the previous ones, if the thing that the bike collided with had not been. Voices rose and strong screams erupted, shaking the atmosphere. My mother wailed, Dana screamed, Raghad screamed, and Walid floundered, begging for help, screaming from excessive pain. As for Samar, he ended up with a frighteningly distorted face and a shrunken eyelid that left the right eye half closed for life. It was a very bad accident, and our beautiful day ended with a scar, erased memory and heart tray of hot coals. We all ran towards the two in horror. Oasis Ember caused Raghad a burn in her left arm. Despite the operations he underwent, Samar's face continued to bear the traces of the fateful accident forever. Raghad, who emerged from the accident with a single burn on the arm, left with deep, indelible marks on her body. As for Dana, she instilled in Raghad the firm belief that she was the reason for what happened to Samar because she was the one driving. The bike at that time, Raghad became terrified and tense most of the time. She became afraid to sleep alone and insisted that I stay by her side until she entered the world of sleep. And she would often wake up terrified from sleep in the early days and run too. And the time that I thought was the last, followed by other times, the little girl fell asleep in my room, seeking safety and reassurance. Walid, I'm afraid the fire hurts. Walid, I will never ride a bike again. Walid, I don't want to be left alone. The embers are chasing me. Walid, when I grow up, I will become but me. I doubt that a demon came out of my chest and drove the bike towards the burning coals. And Samar and Raghad were burned with a fire that was in my chest. The fire in my chest only increased its burning. The incident only got closer on Monday, and the days only increased my attachment, clinging, and madness to Raghad. I finally finished high school. I want to join the university, but the aerial bombardment we were subjected to recently destroyed the university building. I wanted her. It also destroyed part of the factory owned by my father. Our country's conditions are deteriorating, and the war has not stopped since it broke out almost 2 years ago. Our financial level declined as a result of these events. Study means a lot to me, especially after what happened. It's one of my life's dreams. What more dreams? Do you remember Raghad's dream box that I made for her 3 years ago? I added a new dream to it that says, I want to become a huge businessman. I think that the administrative issues suits me better. I found an opportunity that fell from the sky to be sent to study abroad, provided that I passed an exam acceptance, which I will make the day after tomorrow. And how soon the day after tomorrow? My fate and future hang in the balance on that day. I have gone back to reading some topics from different subjects to prepare for it. Pray for me success. At the moment, I am without a job, or shall we say, unemployed for the future. Over the past 3 years, my height and size have increased a lot, and I have become gigantic and huge. I'm taller than my father, and I feel a little shy whenever I stand next to him. The petite pamper. I have now arrived at the primary school gate, and here I see the two girls kissing towards the car. And watch what happens. The two race towards the front door. One arrives a fraction of a second before the other, Each one tries to open the door and sit in the seat next to me. They fight, you're fighting. You both control me. Walid, I arrive before her. It's me, Walid, isn't it? Walid, tell her to stay away from me. I'm the one who arrived first. Let her ride behind you, Walid. Enough, yaw. Every day the same story's repeated. Now I have to create a schedule divided between them. Well, who was sitting next to me yesterday? Dana replied. I said. So today Raghad sits and tomorrow Dana and so on. Agreed? With pride and euphoria of victory, Mrs. Raghad got in and sat in the front seat next to me. While Dana looked at her with regretful looks, how I will miss these two bitches. Walid, we learned a difficult lesson in mathematics. I want you to help me solve the exercises. Okay, Raghad. I also want you to help me with grammar exercises. Okay, Dana, Raghad said quickly. But me first, I asked you first. Dana said I'm harder. I come first, Walid. My lesson, me first. Me first, me first. Woe to these two girls. Both. I will never miss them. I used to teach the two girls often, especially after I graduated from school. Many, very many situations happened over the past years, but I summarized them for you, as much as possible. When we got home, precisely when I was about to insert the key into the door to open it, the competitions began. Give me the key, I will open it. No, I will open it, Walid. Don't imitate me. You don't imitate me. And the conflict raged. I turned my back to the door and stood between the two girls and frowned at them. I said sharply, I am the one who will open the door. And if I hear you two arguing over this key again, I will open your heads and empty what with them. My tone was supposed to be sharp and threatening and arouse fear, but Raghad simply started laughing. The two exchanged a group of favorite foods and dishes even in each other's heads. They gave me a headache and nausea. I said, enough. I am the one who will open my head so I can throw you both out. I turned around and opened the door. Dana quickly entered to precede Raghad, while Raghad walked slowly and waited for me until I entered, then closed the door. Child, she said, I don't want to get out of your head. I was amazed. I looked at her in surprise and said, I turned to her, filled with enough of their absurdity, and said with a sigh, what then, sorry? I replied, I don't want to get out of your head. And why? She smiled mischievously and said, so that I can see people from above. You are tall. I smiled at her calmly. Then suddenly I extended my hand towards her and raised it from the ground, while she was unaware of it, to the top of my head. And I said, thus? Raghad started laughing with indescribable happiness and joy. Do you remember how much she loved to hold her? It still is. I entered the house, then the kitchen, while I was still carrying her, and she laughed happily. Then I sat her on one of the chairs, and I greeted my mother, who was busy preparing the dishes for the table. My mother said, Raghad, go and perform your prayers, then sit at the dining table. Raghad got up, taking the school bag off her back, looking at my mother and saying, for your information, this little girl loves fried potatoes very much. My mother continued her work and spoke to me without looking at me. These words of my mother changed the course of my understanding. But she is just a small and light child, and she loves it. This sentence from my mother made memories suddenly appear in my mind. I remembered how she came to our house 6 or 7 years ago. Oh, the days. Crisp. Yes, I made it for you. Raghad was happy and left the kitchen. You're not young anymore. I focused my ease on her and said to her, Raghad, you've grown a little. She is no longer too small to carry in your arm. What memories. In my room later, I flipped through a photo album that included my family members. The little one has grown up. Time passes quickly. Now I'm applying to university, and when I travel, I stop there. I can't think beyond that. How can I stay away from my family and my country? How can I bear alienation and loneliness? How can the morning rise for me without me drinking my mother's fragrant tea? And how can the sun set without me reading my father's newspaper news? How can my eyes close without wishing my brothers a peaceful sleep? How can my heart beat without carrying Raghad in my arms? I will go to take the exam the day after tomorrow. And if I pass it, I will leave the country in a week or a little more. These are thoughts that make me feel afraid and anxious. Am I stronger than that? I have to. Our conditions are deteriorating, and my university degree will mean a lot. The candidates for this exam are few, and it was a golden opportunity to add my name to them. I am confident of my ability to pass it. God willing, I flipped through the album and was confused which picture A to take. With me. Then I chose a picture that included all of us, showing Raghad clinging to my leg with a wonderful smile on her beautiful face. That's it. She took the picture and another picture of Raghad coloring in one of her notebooks and put them in her wallet, my pocket. In the evening, I went with my brother Samer to a store to buy some things, and we stopped at the suitcases. Wanting to buy some while we were there, a group of young men came, and Ammar was among them. Ammar succeeded with difficulty and graduated despite his neglect from high school, and he believed that his father, a person with great influence, was able to secure an academic seat for himself at a university in an illegally manner. When Ammar saw me, Nui approached, preceded by his obnoxious laugh, and said, "It seems that Walid intends to travel, friends. Did your father find there is nothing left but for the honorable to work for the deviant humble?" Ammar shouted, "Shut up, you ugly one-eyed man. Who allowed you to speak? Aren't you ashamed of your horrifying face?" He turned to his companions and said, "Run away, guys. Antichrist." A torrent of violent punches I directed without stopping, and unconsciously at every body I caught Ammar and his friends. At that moment, I felt a desire to gouge out his eyes and skin him. My brother Samer also suffered from them. The fight intensified, and whoever intervened, and whoever fled, and we ended up being intervened by the police. That night, for the first time since the fateful incident, I heard my brother crying silently. When he was burned, he was still an 11-year-old child. Perhaps his appearance did not occupy his mind or interest in the meaning of the word, but now, and he is an adult boy who has deeper thinking. Things were very different that night. He said that he wanted to undergo a new plastic surgery, but our financial conditions at the present time do not allow for this. When I get my college degree and work and earn money, I will show it to the most skilled people, plastic surgeons, to restore it to how it was. Only when I get my degree, the next day I found my car full of disfiguring scratches. It's Amar the bastard, fuck him. I drove my brothers to school and occupied myself that morning with more preparations for the upcoming travel. My exam is tomorrow, so I spent most of the time reading various topics from my textbooks previous. And every time you turn a new page of the book, you turn a page from the photo album. How can I separate from my family? How to stay away from Raghad? I feel upset if a few hours go by without me seeing her or petting her, and I get upset whenever she stays at home. Her aunt is far from me. While I was engaged in my thoughts and reading, Raghad came to me. She knocked on the door, then entered the room slowly, leaving the door half open. Walid, I have a tough workout. Help me solve it. I left the book from my hands and got up, went to her and knelt down in front of her. Raghad, what's wrong with you? Her mouth curved down in sudden sadness, and she said, "Is it true that?" Her question surprised me. I was not talking about traveling with her, so it was too early. "Are you going far?" I said jokingly. "Yes, Raghad. To a faraway place where there is no Raghad, no Dana, and no quarreling. And I will leave my head here." She did not seem to understand or accept my joke, as her little mouth became more curved and her eyes began to turn red. She said, "And will you take me with you?" I bit my lip, and it was my turn to curl up in sadness. Here I expelled the wave of sadness that had come over me, and I said, Who told you that I would travel?" 11. I heard my parents talking about this. I stroked her head and said, "I will travel temporarily to study and then come back. And me? You will stay with everyone, and as soon as I finish my studies, I will come back and take you anywhere in the world." I don't want you to go, Walid. Who would love me as much as you do if I were gone? I felt a dagger stuck in my chest. Raghad, oh little girl, who resides in every cell of my body, don't you know what that means? Your parting is for me. I don't know if she felt the stab that tore my heart or if I was exaggerating the matter, but her tears flowed slowly from her eyeballs. My princess's tears that shake my being. I reached out my hand and wiped away her tears while trying to smile. Raghad, my dear, you still have Dana and Samar, and my mother and father, and Nahla and Hossam and Sarah is the second daughter of Hossam's mother, with their mother, and all your friends. You will not be alone. I am the only one. He will be alone, she said quickly. Take me with you. I clenched my fist and said, I wish. I can't, my little one. But when I come back... I didn't finish my sentence. Raghad threw her, and she started crying deeply, and every time I tried to wipe her head, she removed my hand and hit my chest in denunciation. Her blows would not have been painful, if I had not had some bruises and bruises on my chest as a result of my fight, the last one with Ammar and his friends. I felt pain, but I didn't move. I left her free to express her feelings as much as she wanted. I did not stop her. I did not push her away. I have not said a word yet. She is Raghad, who was raised in my arms and hugged the same chest that she is beating now. I wish they hadn't burned the university. I wish they hadn't burned the factory. I wish they had burned something else. I wish they had burned Ammar. And it seems. Raghad's voice reached my father's ears, so he came to my room and stood at the door opening. When he saw my son Raghad hitting me, he became angry at her behavior, and in a sharp voice he said, while standing at the door, "Raghad, stop this." Raghad raised her head and looked at my father, then said, "Don't let him go." But my father said sharply, "Take your book and go back to your mother and let Walid study." Raghad did not move from her place, so my father raised his voice angrily and said, "Didn't you hear? Go to your mother and be a sensible girl." Raghad picked up her book from the floor and left the room, but my heart was squeezing in pain. After that, I said to my father, "Why, Dad? She will cry for hours. She came asking me to teach her." My father said angrily, "Your mother used to teach her, and when the mention of your travel came, she carried her book and came to you. We forbade her, but I don't resent that, Father. She's just a child, and I also get very upset if someone abuses her. Will anyone abuse my child?" She raised her head to me, and I saw the dark world through her innocent eyes. I approached her, and I put my arms around her and said, "Don't cry, my dear. Your tears are very precious." "My father, please do not be harsh on her after I am gone. Who knows what will happen after I am gone? I do not accept a single word from her. I wish I could take it with me." I waited until my father left the house, then I searched for Raghad and found her in her room, and as I expected, she was soaked in tears. I went up to her and called her, "Raghad, my little girl." She raised her head to me, and I saw the dark world through her innocent eyes.